Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the third episode of Piano Star Masterclass, professional piano lessons for everybody, brought to you by Piano League. I'm your host, Brian Lin, a professional pianist and a piano teacher. Ever since I graduated from Juilliard a few years ago, making piano education accessible to everybody has been one of my main goals. And that's why I created the series, the Piano Star Masterclass. It starts with a 30-minute interview with a professional pianist, followed by an hour of live-streamed piano lessons taught by that pianist. During the live stream, you can ask us any questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them. But remember, you can also sign up to be a performing student, regardless of your level. We have 2 more free classes in April, and it stops being free after that. So please apply soon. Piano Star is all about giving piano students performing opportunities. So besides the masterclass, we also have the Piano Star Showcase, an hour-long virtual concert for young pianists aged 7 to 12. Application deadline is in exactly 1 week, and you only have to play 1 piece. So if your kids or students are within that age range and you want to give them a chance to perform, be sure to check that out as well. Now, I'd like to introduce you to our guest teacher today. She is the only pianist currently performing Liszt's 24 etudes as a single program, and one of few to have a concerto list of over 60. She's a pianistic powerhouse. A result of her uncompromising dedication to the arts, she's recognized not only for her achievement as a pianist, but also for her work as a transcriber, composer, visual artist, poet, and entrepreneur. She is the founder and artistic director of the Chamber Music Festival with Special Programming Festival Baltimore, and the president of the nonprofit organization Music for Minds, which is focused on bringing classical music to the classrooms in schools and making it available for and appreciated by children. So, everybody, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Asiya Korepanova. Hi, good morning, Asiya. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, my pleasure.
Thank you. All right. So before we go into our topic today, I just wanted to ask you about something, okay? So for those of our audience who don't know, you are actually the mastermind behind that viral video of a pianist playing with just the knuckles, the coronavirus, the so-called coronavirus video. I'm going to play it for our audience right now so that people know what I'm talking about. This received tens of thousands of views on social media. So let's just take a look. All right, so let's see. So yeah, due to time constraint, I can only show that much. For those of you who wants to see the whole video, you can go to Asiya's page or Piano League's page. We both have that video. All right, so Asiya, what gave you the idea of creating that video?
Well, I was reading something, and the article was suggesting a proper caution when touching things outside. And other than just wearing masks and putting gloves on and other things, the suggestion was try to not touch anything with your fingers. Try to use elbows and fists to open doors, to like pull things towards you and stuff like that. And so somehow after reading that, I'm just like, how does that apply to pianists? Why?
That's really funny. And how did you play it so accurately too, without fingers? That's amazing.
I may have practiced.
Wow.
Right. And what I had to think about, like revealing a little bit behind that thinking. I had to think about a piece that has a lot of black notes and minimum of white notes that would allow me to be accurate, because if I would be playing C major prelude, I would not be so successful in playing with just my knuckles. So I thought about different pieces, and this came to my mind. And then I had to just navigate my hands, understanding what I'm trying to achieve, and how should I turn my wrist, and how should I turn it in not only this direction but this direction to allow me to do slurring and other articulation that is required for that piece. And I think it is a very fun start for our topic today, because it has exact relation to speaking of fingers, even though I didn't use any fingers, because in my teaching and teaching students of very different levels, people who are playing very advanced repertoire and people who are playing a very simple repertoire, a lot of times I see people struggle with following the suggested fingerings that are provided on the page. And sometimes we are reading something and we understanding that a person who wrote fingering for us maybe was successful with them himself or herself, but it for some reason is uncomfortable for us. And a lot of people say, "Oh, what was that idiot who wrote fingers for this piece? This doesn't make any sense." But it actually, there's no reason to insult the poor person who did the fingering, just because we're all differently shaped. Our hands are differently built, and we need to be creative, not only with our interpretation as we plan how we're going to play the piece, but we also have to be creative, understanding exactly the shapes of our hands and understanding what makes us more comfortable, what makes us less comfortable, and kind of taking things from there.
Understood. So I guess that's kind of why you wanted to talk about today's topic, right? Did you have some personal frustrations with fingerings in the past that made you really want to share this topic with the audience, or what would you say is the reason for today's topic?
The reason is collective, because yes, I had frustration situations growing up myself. Now, you have to understand, I am coming from Russia, and Russian piano school is very famous, it's very rigorous, it's very intense, and there are so many benefits about that. But there are also a part of our tradition is sticking to the tradition, which means a lot of teachers would actually require their students to follow the fingering on the page. And it's almost like this type of philosophy where you need to make it work no matter what, even if you're not really comfortable with that. If you're going to play the piece, you need to be able to play with any fingers that you're told to, which has certain benefits to it, because you really learn to become flexible and trying to do, But at the same time, for the learning process and for the development process, it makes perfect sense. But when we are preparing for a public performance, when we're preparing for competition, when we're preparing for something that not only poses the problems of the piece in front of us, but also problems related to high adrenaline, nervousness, stress, certain fears that different people have of different levels, you need to eliminate the discomfort from every possible way to deal with stress and other things that inevitably, to a certain extent, we have playing on big stages or for important auditions or things like that. So when we are getting ready to perform, it's much better to find a fingering that is 100% stable, and that you don't have to think in terms like, okay, this is a very uncomfortable passage and I am required to play with very uncomfortable fingering, and oh my God, what if it doesn't work? And size of hands makes a lot of difference. The width of this part makes a lot of difference because some people have very narrow.
I have very small hands.
Very small, but your hands are very organically shaped. See, you have maybe they're not big, but all of your fingers are pretty much the same length. They're very close. For example, the difference between my pinky and my fourth finger is much bigger of a difference than between your pinky and your fourth finger, which is good for octaves and good for big technique a lot. So some people have very long fingers but narrow wrist. That makes them less stable. But at the same time, it makes them more comfortable in octaves, in chords. But then when they play like fine passage work, they're getting like tangled up in their own fingers because it's so big. And at the same time, people with much smaller hands can be absolutely unbeatable in like double notes and small passage work, but struggle with octave technique and something that is big and requires stretch, because also stretching is tricky because sometimes it also makes you tense and you need to learn how to be relaxed while being stretched to your absolute limit, right? So I would say that identifying your strengths and weaknesses and being very, very open with yourself about that. Like, this is my strength and this is my weakness. I have to watch out for that. I have to watch out for that. For me, for example, I have wide wrist and it's very helpful. I don't have long fingers, but they are kind of thick and so they feel stable. My problem is my pinky is really short. So when I play octave passages, it is comfortable for me to use my fourth and third fingers for octaves because I have enough stretch for that. But when I'm playing wide keys with my pinkies, I have to be very careful because if I'm not careful, I start touching other keys with my fourth and third fingers because my pinky is so short. I'm really like easy keyboard. So we all have these little things that betray us at times, and we have just to be conscious about it and try to pick fingering that would aid that. And for example, I'm trying to use more of the fourth finger and more of the third finger whenever possible, and sometimes even support my pinky with my forefinger when possible, playing octave passages in it, that helps. And I would alternate much more these three fingers rather than trying to play with the same pinky all the way along. So for my type of hand, alternating works perfectly. For some people, they're not finding that very comfortable, but at the same time, I mean, especially the third. Some people cannot stretch the third to the octave. It's just depending on the shape and your individual flexibility. It's different things. But for the octave passage, this is my little.
Gotcha. So, from what I understand, you have some examples that you would like to share with us, so that we can go a little bit more in depth in those, the double notes that you were talking about, the octaves. So, would you like to share some examples from pieces, maybe, where changing or using the correct way to finger to use the correct fingerings might help someone play better?
Yes, like for example, for the 1 second.
No problem.
For the octave passage, I have this example
Sure.
of Chopin etude.
Okay.
And finder. Okay, this is the example. Can you see it?
Yes, you need to. No, you need to. You're sharing your Finder. You need to share the picture instead. So
Do you see it now?
no. So why don't you stop share and then yes, and then open. That's okay. Open the picture and then
Boom.
share. Yeah, there we go. Now it's clear. Yes.
So there is this wonderful passage in the Chopin
Okay.
Etude,
Mm-hmm.
where once we have something going chromatically, such as here,
Mm-hmm.
it's more idiomatic, and people would alternate, and probably fourth fingers on the black notes and fifth fingers on the white notes.
Right. Right.
But when we come to this passage, everybody is different. For some people, it is easy to just blast it with all fifths.
Mm-hmm.
But blasting it with all fifths poses an additional stress on the fifth finger and the wrist itself. So it's very exhausting, and you're pretty much dying by the time you're getting up. At the same time, what is the octave passage? A lot of people, it's not necessarily 100% about the fingering itself, but fingering is not something that comes first. The first should come your idea of what you need to get, of what you want to get. And it's like you're trying to paint a picture and you're picking your brushes. Am I picking a fine brush, or am I picking a thick brush, or whether it's a intense color or pale color? So you need to understand what's the easiest way for you to group these notes. What makes you more comfortable to go da 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 da, or da da dum da da dum da da dum da da dum da da dum, depending on your individual shape. For some people, it would be easier to play one note in a stroke. I mean, three notes in a stroke that goes upwards. Da 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 da. For some people, it would be circular motion. Da da dum da da dum is more comfortable, and depending on that, you can decide whether you would put, for example, more stable finger for you.
Gotcha. So it's deciding which of the group is the first note, right?
Yeah. You're like, here you can definitely play 4-5-5 as a, and that first note. If this is the first note of the group, it would be your mental accent, not real accent, but your mental accent. After that, you slide to gain 5 and the 5, or you go, if your finger is stronger, your stronger finger is 4 for the octave, you can go 4-5-5. But some people would even go 2 4s in a row, and some people who can stretch enough would do 3-4-5. No, that's only for people who have big hands.
Right. So
But
how would you suggest someone to decide which group they're more comfortable with? Should they just try them out, and how do they try it out?
you play, you break the passage in the small groups,
Okay.
and you try each group separately. Da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-dum. Then you shift one note off, and you go na-na-na, da-da-dum, da-da,
Gotcha.
da-da-dum. And then you need to identify, gradually try to play it a little faster, each little group, and see in what combination you feel you're more comfortable and you're getting more clarity. And in a lot of passages that are not octave passages, in the double notes and in the passages that are just one line passage, grouping notes together and seeing what grouping works for you better is very, very beneficial because it also addresses the way you pick your fingers as well.
Gotcha. So one more question on the octave before we go on to the double notes. How do we deal with the thumb when we're doing the octaves? Because I know a lot of people, struggle with just playing. Do you put more emphasis or weight on the pinky or more on the thumb? What do you think about when you are grouping these notes?
Well, I have sort of two layers of processing. One is melodic grouping, which is more based on what's happening on the upper line. But then I always practice the lower line separately. I always practice the thumb separately. And so after I pick my groups, I break the octaves in two voices and I practice them separately. And emphasis is something very individual depending on where you are. Sometimes on certain black key, it's more stable to kind of put your thumbs down. And on some white keys, it's more grounding to be kind of putting emphasis on the outer lines. But I don't have such a thing where I'm constantly playing by the thumb or by the upper line. I vary it depending on whether it's the passage, the bottom of the passage or like little curve in the octave passage.
And if for people who have small hands and you just can't reach even an octave, for example, or like you can barely reach an octave, would you recommend that they play on the side of the piano, or I struggle with this myself too, or just on top of it? What makes more sense, do you think? If let's say if you were playing a 10th or 11th, I don't know how far you can reach.
If I'm playing the
Right.
10th, which is about how much I can.
Right. So
I'm down because
okay.
That would
be touching the keys. So you would still keep the wrist low and play on the side.
My mom was my first piano teacher. Bless her heart. She, growing up and up to today, she was always having very small hands. I'm talking a person who didn't reach an octave by the age of 14.
Wow.
So like really small hands. She was graduating from conservatory playing Brahms too. So what she did, she carefully, let me pull it this way.
Go ahead. Yes.
It's a very tricky but very important thing to understand. Same as people who gradually and very accurately stretch to accomplish certain yoga positions or to achieve a split or do all sorts of things. Our stretching is comprised of how you're stretched here and how flexible things are here. And here we have connective tissue and tendons and joints that are also flexible in between. All these things are stretchable. So what my mom would told me after I practice and my hands are warmed up and I'm kind of in a very good way, she would tell me, I was little and she was terrified that I would grow up with small hands too. So I was little and she made me do that every day very, very carefully. She would like put your pinky or fourth finger upon the end of the key, like this. Do you see?
Yes.
Would be able to, like you just sort of pick with the end of the finger. You just like any surface, you just do this.
Ah, okay.
Like you just put your finger this and this to the end, and then
Uh-huh.
you take the opposite side and you very carefully pull in a very, very gentle way, trying to stretch. You will feel stretching here.
Understand. Just like how you're doing a split with your hand.
Yeah, very,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you do a little massage here, and you pull. It is a very you need to understand, nothing strong, nothing aggressive. You don't want to,
Right. Don't hurt yourself.
not trying to achieve our ideal stretching overnight or within a week. But if you do like, or also you like sitting on the train or in the metro or something, and you like literally doing this and
Mm-hmm.
this and
Mm-hmm.
doing this and doing this, and surprisingly, it helps because
Gotcha.
if you then stretch and you kind of have a straight line here, that would allow you to play most of the octaves.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Wow. I will tell my students to do a little more stretching from now
Yeah,
on.
it's
Yes.
very good. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So we have about 3 minutes left. Why don't we go over one more example and then we'll move on to the students. How about that?
I would love to
Yes.
pull, this is a very good example.
Okay.
This is from uh, this is from a wonderful etude by a list called Gnommenregen.
Okay.
And there are two runs in that etude that are very similar, and they kind of go up the keys. The same type of passage go in one key and then in another key, and then in two more keys in the following run of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is the Petter's edition. It is a very good edition
Gotcha. Right.
that we all love and cherish. And the fingering is provided by Emil von Zauber, who was a wonderful pianist, and we
Mm-hmm.
don't have any reasons to not trust what he's saying.
Right.
This particular passage, for example, he puts thumb on C sharp, followed by this turn, where you need to kind of cross your entire hand over C sharp with the thumb, and then going even farther on the
Right.
flat key, which is somewhat stressful.
It's yes, it's stressful enough to just play a thumb on the black
That's
key.
why he's
And
doing that, because he wants to keep the fingering the same, because in the passage, in the similar passage in the next measure, there would be the same thing. There would be thumb on the D and then third on the B, and it just rolls this one position and that one position, and that makes sense. But here, if we're playing it very fast, which is quite fast tempo of this etude, and if we want to be gentle, and the being gentle here is the most difficult thing, to not have unwanted accents and anything that sticks out, we need to reconsider what exactly do we want to do. If we want to make that C become a part of that kind of accented left hand note, it's one thing. But if we want to kind of being able to play it in a very, very, very fine flow, we probably will have to put thumb on E instead and put the fourth finger on C sharp. In that way, it would be much smoother.
right.
And
How does one decide on which how do you decide, okay, so I put four here and the white the thumb on the E. How does one figure out I guess the fingering of a whole passage?
these very popular mathematical games where you have to figure something out depending on certain pictures provided or certain numbers provided. It's not like real math, but it's like a mathematical task, and people love it. So very oftentimes, in order to figure out what the answer is, you have to write out all possible versions and compare them.
Gotcha.
So what I would do, I would, if I feel this doesn't really work for me, I try to play this passage with as many options of fingers as I can possibly figure out, and I write all of them down. Some of them can be like completely idiotic and like definitely will not work, but I will still try them.
Right.
And that way there's always would be like one or two the best ones that just feel in the hand right.
Right.
Also grouping four notes, and then once you reach the thumb, 3 notes, and then the chromatic scale. Understanding that thinking in groups brings psychologically fingers together and help you kind of think through them faster. And we play fast when we think fast, not the opposite.
Right. So just on that example, I can see you if we put one on the E, then I can already see two versions where from the highest note, highest C sharp, you could go 5, 4, 3, 1 or 5, 3, 2, 1, right? There's already two versions there,
Yes, yes,
right? So
yes.
so I guess for pianists out there, you should try both versions out and see which one feels more comfortable.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All
And
right.
in the forward run, sorry, I will eat one more minute
Sure.
of your time, because I think it's a very valuable example.
You're sharing the Finder again, so you need to open it and then. Right. You need to share the picture instead.
Yeah. I think it is this one. Do you see it?
No.
Okay.
There we go. Yes.
So this is the next this is the next page. See the same passage that was in the previous one with that works normally with the thumb on the D.
Right.
And now he's trying to keep the same fingering. And this is, to me,
Oh, wow.
ridiculous. You need to put your fourth finger on C natural after thumb on E flat.
Wow. You have to really turn, from the black key to the white key.
And now think it's piano. It's really soft, and it goes. So
Right.
probably Emil von Sauer's hands were not very big, and for him, such turning in fast play, in a fast tempo, in a very delicate dynamics was fine. But if I'm trying to play this fingering that is written on in this measure, I sound like an elephant that accidentally, out in a furniture store or or copper store. So
Gotcha.
I'm really like on eggshells. So I need to repurpose that. So
Right.
I'm putting here myself. I'm putting 5 on E flat, and then I'm putting 3 on C, and then I'm putting on A. I'm putting thumb, and then fourth on F sharp.
Ah.
I reach A with my thumb, and then from F sharp I'm putting second finger and going up naturally the way scale.
The chromatic scale goes.
Yeah, and it works. My type of hand, it works like gazillion times better than what's written on the page.
Right, I can already feel it. I was going through your fingering in my brain, and it does feel a lot better. So,
I know some people who played it this way and they were fine, but I look at it and I'm just, what?
gotcha. Right. So, yeah, just a mental note for everyone. Don't feel bad if you can't do the fingering that's on the score. Figure out your own fingering. What works best for you.
Fearless and try as much as you can, and it's completely fine to tailor your fingerings to your own needs.
Gotcha. All right. So I think it's time finally to get to the masterclass session of this. Yeah, that was super helpful. We'll have the video on replay so people who missed the live stream, they can watch it again. And we have our next performer in the waiting room now, so I will let her in. Her name is Anna, and let's begin. Right, Asiya, you ready to
Yes.
see the first performer? All right. Get her in.
Hello.
Hi, Anna.
Hey there.
All
Hi.
right, so I'll let you take over, Asiya.
Thank you.
All right.
Nice to meet you, and thank you for being here today. I'm very excited.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So what would you like to start with, and would you like to tell me how long you've been working on the piece you're playing?
So I will be playing Prokofiev Sonata 6, Movement 4. I started working on it a few years ago, actually, so it's been almost 2 years
Oh,
since
great.
I started working on it. Yeah. And so I've been doing this piece for quite a while and had a few months of break for this piece in those 2 years, but yeah.
Have you played the entire sonata in that time?
Yes, I have several times.
Beautiful. Well, I'm excited to hear you.
Thank you. Should I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Your Honor, thank you so much. I'm gonna interrupt you because we have very little time, and I would love to tell you a little bit. That is a wonderful clarity that you have, and I'm glad that you don't. The way you play doesn't feel like certain things are difficult for you. For a lot of pianists that struggle with these. What concerns me a little bit is the way you think in this music. I always feel like you're propelling yourself through the second beats of every measure. So when I listen to you, I don't feel stable. this music and this movement is almost like an ostinato. Do you know what ostinato is? It's something. It's a repetitive. Either it's sustained note or it's a repetitive gesture, repetitive note. Pum, 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 pum. So you need to feel that pulsation in your ears at all times, because that pulsation gives the character for this music. What happens? You think more in, which is in a sense good. It sounds like you're thinking in the bigger picture, in the bigger phrases, but because you're thinking in the bigger phrases, you're also shifting in terms of your tempo a little bit. So it goes. So be careful with every fourth, eighth note in your measure. Basically, last beat. Because if it falls, if it becomes slightly faster than the beginning of the measure, because in the beginning of the measures, beginnings of your measures, you're playing in your normal tempo. It fluctuates like this and gives away a very unsettled feeling, which is strange because you're playing all the notes correctly and everything is prepared and everything is wonderful. But because you're not listening to overall pulse, it gets very, very unstable. At the same time, are you familiar with Prokofiev's orchestral music?
Not as familiar now.
I would suggest that you listen to some of his symphonic works. I would suggest you listen to his 7th Symphony. I would suggest you listen to his 5th Symphony. I would suggest you listen more carefully to his piano concertos. And I'm saying this because Prokofiev is a very poetic and romantic composer. We don't really think about him this way because I'm having such a such amount of sun coming on my face. We don't really think about Prokofiev as poetic composer because we are absorbed by the edginess of his music, and we're absorbed by technical demands of his music, and we're absorbed by this character and kind of aggressive part. And yes, it takes a lot of effort to bring these things on. But when you get into the second theme, it cannot sound almost the same that the previous material, because if you did not know, if you look at this page, that melody itself, if you did not know what was before, you would think that this is a landscape piece with very, very poetic accompaniment that has nothing to do with this very characteristic and moto and perpetuum mobile kind of motion that this movement has overall. So having this second theme as an oasis of that beauty would actually enhance the effect that you have in the fast and aggressive parts. Because if you kind of run through the it doesn't catch the listener. It doesn't show the listener, oh, look, there's something else. There's some variety in this music. So overall, the best thing, even when you see the piece has a certain character, a certain tempo, a certain demand, if you can find in that piece a single moment of difference, a single moment of contrast, try your best to bring that contrast out. It's just like as if you're opening the door and you entering completely different world. You know, like in the Narnia movie, like you open the door of the closet and there's like completely different world in there. This is how these poetic themes should arrive. Just like, oh, what is this? You need to be surprised yourself. At the same time, would you like to try in the beginning listening to the pulse of eighth notes and thinking ahead of how you're going to play your second theme the way it could sound drastically different? I would appreciate that.
Okay, I can try.
Thank you. Also, you don't have to be metronomically accurate when you finish one phrase and you start another phrase. These whole sections, da 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 da, and then da 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 da. This is, it's a little closure that finishes this particular little section. So if you go bam bam da da dum taka 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 ta, it doesn't give us the sense of, okay, this is one part has ended and something else is starting. Don't be afraid to put a little tesora in between. Don't be afraid of giving yourself some more time to reflect on. So it will be a little bit separated for your own processing and for processing of your listeners. Okay, that was much better. That was more rhythmically stable, but you still think you still have to think more careful about the endings of every measure. And when you practice, just pay more attention to the endings of the measure. And also those forzandos can be a little more. It can be just a little bit more for the better contrast as well. Another thing. Oh.
That don't keep going. That was just me. I'm just.
What happened?
I'm just showing the audience the score. Keep going.
The sforzandos. There are different types of sforzandos that can be addressed different ways. But since we have a quarter notes there, and quarter notes are heavy, and everything before in that movement so far was piano. It's piano, mezzo piano, then a little bit un poco crescendo, but we don't have anything major in terms of dynamics up to this point. So suddenly these sforzandos come in, and it has to be like bright, a light, like something very sad. And still, Anna, I cannot stress this enough. We sometimes need to derive inspiration and appreciation of the pieces that we're playing, comparing them to other pieces of the composer. And for understanding, think about the opening measures of the third piano concerto. It's so poetic and so beautiful, and in such a profound and sensitive way. And if you think about it, it's fast, but it has same kind of little folkish character to it. It's derived from the same place that the theme from the third concerto derived. It's very related to nature, like landscape, something very calm inside. So it should not be busy, and even if it looks busy because there's a lot of notes, you still can play it in a more serene way to again provide the better contrast to what was before and for what to come. So if you look through that through the movement, it's basically the conversation of these two themes. It's a dialogue, fast 16 notes that are running, and they bump into this, accompanied by triplets, oases of completely different character. And the more defined from one another you can make these two themes, the more interesting and more engaging the movement overall will sound. Because you don't have too much variety overall before the third theme comes in. So you should pretend for yourself that is never going to come, and all that you're dealing with is just these two things. One is fast and kind of fuzzy, and another one is more poetic, and you kind of should milk the best and the most out of these two. So when the third comes, you will be complete shock, because it's completely new material. It's a new key, new type of accompaniment, that the repeated chord, and everything about that is almost shocking. And you need to think about, when we play something that is so famous, like this sonata is very famous, a lot of people know how it goes. So if you can think about kind of polishing your characters to the point where it sounds very fresh and unexpected, that would make your performance very successful. Because yeah, we all know pretty much how it goes, but if you can provide something that is very special, it will make a lot of difference. Can we go from, if it would be comfortable for you to start, maybe from, can you start from there? It's a one page before the G sharp theme.
One page before the G sharp theme?
It's a one, pretty much one page.
Okay.
You know when I'm...
That part?
Uh-huh. Hold on. You need to get to real piano before blasting into that theme. So when you hit dagadam, you need to do your best to go as soft as you can. I know it's just one piano, but the softer you go, the more of an effect would be the da-da-dum, bum, 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 bum. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Also, bum, da-da-dum, you have these accents. Do not neglect the accents, because the accents here mark the peaks, the lowest note and the highest note of the melody that goes from here and goes all the way there. So give yourself a little bit time before the accents to really place it.
Okay.
Keep going. Anna, when you're playing, you cannot speed up there. Your left hand is your measure. It's constant. It's like a metronome. I understand. The brilliance of that passage is very attractive. You kind of want to, but that's not the right place to do that. This is not like a passage in the Chopin concerto that is kind of free and you can just kind of go whenever direction you want. It has to be strict because, you know, they say,
Oh, I think Asiya is having some connection problems. All right, we'll try to get her back. Okay. All right. I'll start my video. But I'll just show our audience which part she was talking about. Show computer sound. Let's see. Right. It's right here. Great job, by the way, Anna. That's a hell of a performance. It's a really hard piece. What are you a piano major or what do you do right now?
I'm currently a senior in high school, so I haven't quite yet gone to college. But
Oh, I see. And are you thinking of music or music or not music?
I'm planning on pursuing music as more of a hobby on the side, but I definitely will be keeping it with me.
Gotcha. And how long have you studied piano?
I started studying piano in 2008, I believe, so however many years that is, I can't do math.
2008. So that's 12 years. 12 years. Wow. 12 years you're already playing big sonatas. That's amazing. So
I'm doing my best.
yeah, it takes a lot of dedication and focus and just hard work to I think to even get past the intermediate, like the Czerny, you know, a lot of people quit after Bach inventions. So it's amazing that you can do that. And where are you from?
I'm from Massachusetts in the United
Massachusetts.
States.
And is that where you are right now?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Oh, I think if I'm not mistaken, she's getting back in. Oh, but I can't see. Let's see which one. Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yes, welcome back. I had a nice chat. I had a. That's okay. It happens.
Suddenly died, and now I am connecting my computer through my phone, through my cellular connection, because I don't know what's going on with Wi-Fi. It just died.
Okay, that works. This works. I hope it's not costing you a lot of money to to do the cellular thing.
Okay.
All right.
It's fine.
Keep going. All right.
Yeah, I don't know when exactly I was cut off, but
So you were talking about the da 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 da. I think da 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 that part, right? And
yeah, I was talking about that part, and Ada played an excerpt, and she was kind of taking the time in the 16 notes passages a little bit more deliberately, and I was trying to stress that in this section it is very important to listen to your left hand and to not move anywhere. And even I understand it's very attractive to move forward in the 16-note passages. You have to hold yourself and rather focus not on the speed but on the intensity of the right hand passage, like da, 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 da. So it will be like really, really clear and really directed within the passage. So you will listen exactly to what chromaticisms are happening in your passage. Would you please try one more time that section? Okay, thank you. Thank you. That was a little better. I understand you probably you already have a certain habit of playing it this way, and it's hard to change it on the spot. But when you will be practicing, please do not move it anywhere. If it should not go any faster or any slower. It just has to be exactly the way you started the passage.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian, for assisting our cause.
Yep.
Listen how every two notes align with each other. So do not think in the way where you're going abstractly and accompanying yourself with the left hand. Think about how they align and how they're represent the same thing, not the melody and accompaniment, but the one entity.
Okay.
Okay, good. Let us go further from that place further.
Okay. So should I like replay the section and then move on?
Yeah. Listen to your left hand.
Yeah. Okay.
Listen to your left hand. You're speeding up. Anna, see, you have a wonderful flexibility here in terms of how you're doing your lines in a more reflective way, right? You allowing yourself to fluctuate in tempo a little bit. And I mean, it's a matter of taste. I would play this a little more strictly, but the way you listen to the way you listen to this material, that attention, that type of attention you are giving this. You need to treat that second theme in the beginning of the movement, which is faster, in the same way. So there would be a connection, because material here is related, right? But the way you play it, it's not really. It's a reminiscence from the first moment, right? And it's a reminiscence of so many things that happened, but also it's a character reminiscence, and it reminds a little bit of the second theme in this movement. And I think that you're playing a little bit too slow here for Andante. Andante has a little more like a slow walk in the park pace. With a little more direction. So make sure you're not finding yourself in a place where you kind of play one note at a time, or when it goes to 3/4 and this progression starts growing. You still need to think about how to create a phrase that logically brings your listener somewhere. So try to think forward and not play one chord at a time. Try to connect them and gradually build them, and think about how many times this progression that goes down repeats. In the different forms, it repeats how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's growing and gets more complicated, but doing a accelerando, gradual accelerando on it, as you were doing, I don't think it's right, because that takes the emphasis away from the repetitiveness of the progression, which is wonderful here, because each time it gets bigger and bigger. So try to make it a little more steady. I'm not saying completely straight, but try to make it a little more steady, maybe not that slow, but more directed. And so once you start here, instantly think about where it goes when already octaves come in. You know what I mean?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, could you start right from here? My dear, Anna. What's the difference between the thirds that you're playing here versus the third that you're playing in the beginning of Andante section?
They're slightly slower.
How they are slightly slower?
They are 16th notes.
Yes. So they're exactly twice as slow. They're not. So if you go one ta 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 ta, it goes. This is the rhythm that Prokofiev wrote.
Okay.
Do not replace them with 30-second notes. Many people do that. It's a lot of. It's very easy to make that mistake, because the thirds themselves are the same, but make a point of making them drastically different, because they're exactly twice as slow as the ones that ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum, make them melodic rather than almost like an embellishment. Okay, let's try.
I just wanted to remind everyone we're out of time already. So let's wrap up after this. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Still too fast. So if you think in 16 notes, 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1, it's that slow.
Okay.
You don't be afraid of that, because that is how it's written. I know it may sound unusual, but it's the way it's written.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. Very good. Thank you so much. Well, in the way the movement progresses, a lot of things apply. A lot of the same things apply that we already covered. I'm sorry we have had very little time for this, but it was wonderful to work with you.
Thank you very much for the feedback. It's very valuable to me.
Thank you, Anna. Great performance. Thank you. We hope to see you again in the future. All right.
Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
All right. So
That was great.
that was fun. Is your internet connection fine?
Yeah, I think I'm surviving so far. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so I think our next participant, performing student, has been waiting for a while now. So let's get her in. Her name is Sophia.
Cynthia.
Sophia.
Sophia.
Sophia. All right. Let's see. Oh, I think she should be. Hopefully, there we go. And should be just a second. Oh,
hello.
Hi, Sophia. I think you're
waiting. Sorry,
think,
we went over time.
Sophia, I think your screen is
Yes.
is tilted. You might have your screen locked. If you unlock your screen, Sophia, if you unlock the screen of the iPhone, I assume you're using a phone, right? Yeah. So if you unlock the screen, it should tilt the screen correctly. Do you know how to unlock it?
Okay. Oh wait, sorry.
Just the orientation. It's okay. Take your time.
Wait. How do I unlock it?
You're on now, so.
Yeah, I know.
So if you
We are all learning a lot of new things.
right, so if you can go to this this part of the iPhone and then tap this icon right here. If you unlock it, then it should. Yeah, there we go.
Oh.
I'm your technical support of the day.
Hello.
All right. And now Asiya, you're having some connection problem. All right, let's see. Oh,
I have a connection problem, and am I not there?
you're okay. Right now you're fine. You're fine. I can't tell. Are you moving at all? Okay, now we're fine. All right. All right, Sophia, you can see us, right?
Mhm.
All right, cool. All right, I'll drop out.
Hey.
Hi.
Thank you for waiting. We went quite a bit over time. I appreciate you waiting for us. So, as I understand, you're playing Mozart Sonata in F major. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How long have you been playing this piece?
For 3 months.
For 3 months. That's great. Well, let's hear it. you. I will interrupt you here so we have more time to work. Wonderful job, and I think it's a very, very good piece for you. What I would like to you to think about is a lot of things about your quarter notes. What I mean, we have our quarter notes and melodies, right? And we have our quarter notes in places like this. And we have our quarter notes in places like this. And then we have our quarter notes in places like this. Right? And then in places like this. So why I'm pointing out all of these different quarter notes for you? It is because when we're dealing with composers of a particular era and a particular genre, we need to like Mozart or Haydn or Bach or Beethoven are more recognizable in their style because we tend to play the text, the musical text that they have written in a certain way. When we're dealing with Mozart, we need to have a certain idea of how do we play each type of notes that he wrote. What I mean, you played these quarter notes, very short, as if they were marked staccato, but they're not. And yes, Mozart put 2 staccato marks. Like I'm using a Behrenreiter Urtext edition where there's no any editor's marks, only what Mozart put on the page. So I only have 2 staccato marks on these 2 third notes. I mean, yeah, only 2 thirds. Which means that technically you should not be playing these quarter notes all that. Yeah, Brian, you have the same edition that I have.
Yes.
Technically, you should not be going. You should not be doing that because it's not written this way. It has to be. The quarter notes have to have their volume and their length. They need to sound like a note that doesn't have what? Doesn't have a rest after each of them. Because, for example, later in the movement, you have this moment where the difference between right hand and left hand is defined by the length of the note. The right hand is 8 notes with the rest, right? And we need to listen to those rests between those notes, while the left hand goes. It's they kind of plump. They have to be like kind of fatter notes because they're quarter notes. So the whole point of what I'm saying at the moment is you need to realize and understand and pay attention when you're playing the quarter notes versus when you're playing the 8th notes, and give your quarter notes the proper value and only make them short when they are marked so, because otherwise you're gonna be shifting the character quite a bit. And some people may say, oh, but some people interpret it this way or that way or this way. Yes, some people could play the quarter notes shorter, but then they would play them shorter everywhere. So there would be one sense of style throughout the piece versus like one part of it played this way, another part of it played that way. And I understand in our today's conversation in this 30 minutes, it's probably impossible for you just to play through and reverse everything at once because there are many things to think about. But the main thing I want you to remember is think about your style and circle all your quarter notes that are without any markings, and try to find a unifying way of playing them, where we would hear that they're long, that they're quarter notes, that they don't have rests in between them, and that they are supporting as your bass line what's going in the right hand. Okay. Second thing that I would like to address is the way you play accents, the way you play your sforzandos and anything that is loud. I understand you want to get the loud and kind of significant volume from the instrument, but sometimes it is sounding a little too aggressive for Mozart, not because you're doing it too strongly, but because when you're playing the chord down, let me put, when you put the chord down, you need to make sure when you play it loudly and you apply a lot of strength, you need to make sure your elbow goes a little bit to the side at the moment when you reach the keys, because otherwise, see, if I'm locking my elbow and going, it sounds very aggressive. But if I go and I kind of release, it sounds like a more prolonged note, and it doesn't sound like an instant hit. So with Mozart, you need to try to avoid the instant hits. You need to make the chords full, but not aggressive, not metallic, right? And so using your elbows to put them on the sides the moment you play the chord is a very good way to avoid aggressiveness in your fortes. Another thing that I would like to tell you is contrasts. In today's day and age, everything around us so loud. When we play video games, the soundtrack is very loud. When we go to the movies, the soundtrack is very loud. When we are going to the pop concert or listening to our favorite group or favorite artist, everything is very loud. What happens then is when we start playing the instrument, we think that we are the most impressive and the most profound and sound the most serious when we play loud. And with the type of music that we are playing as a classical music, it's not true. Classical music sounds the best when it provides variety, when it provides a lot of contrast, and it provides a lot of definition between when you're playing soft and when you play loud and when you play everything in between. So the bigger difference you can make when you're playing your, for example, the softer you can go, the more impressive, the following a loud episode more impressive would sound, and vice versa. That lyrical episode also needs to be much more transparent, and it's something that you just have to think about it and make it a task. It's not all that difficult to make and make it work. You just need to remember. Okay, why don't you start one more time from the beginning? And for now, just trying to not play your quarter notes too short and trying to play the soft episodes as soft as you can to provide a better contrast to the loud parts. Thank you. That was much better. Let me tell you a couple. That was much better. Let me tell you a little thing. When you see grace notes, which are these embellishments, grace notes are still part of the melody. The reason they are so small is because, yes, they're fast, but they still have to be processed as a part of the melody. So please do not mush them together in one kind of fuzzy thing. Try to sing them out. See the line they are creating. Technically, they are going around the F or then later around the other notes, but it's something that it embellishes the F and makes it more pretty. So it's rather on the elegant side rather than you know. So take a little bit more time and a little bit more care for these little notes, okay? Good. Would you like to start one more time from Bless Your Heart? And do not forget to make your quarter notes a little bit longer. They're in this section became way too short. A little bit more plump, a little bit more weight on them. Go ahead. Think about a choir of people singing together. Some people are singing bass line, some people are singing a tenor line, some people are singing alto line, and some of them are singing soprano line. If all of these people would be singing together, it would be much harder for them to separate the notes and sing right? They would sing so when you see chords that are written in such disposition as if could be sang by the choir, imagine a choir. Because separating them kind of takes away a lot of poetry from that and a lot of beauty, and also it's much harder to make a phrase out of separated chords compared to. Try it out. Very nice. Yeah, keep going. When you have the octaves in the left hand, if you don't give proper weight to your right hand, we're not going to hear it well. And also, do not rush on your right hand. It's not a place to be super fast. You need to make the left and the right hand sound equal. So, do not rush the 16 notes. Try that one more time. That was better. Try one more time and give, among the 3 notes in the right hand, give the top note the most weight.
Wait, should I do it?
Yeah. Okay. Keep going. Okay, think about, my dear, think about this. This is rather a melody, right? And this is not a melody, right? How would you describe what left hand is doing?
What's it called?
Well, let's call it an accompaniment. Let's call it an accompaniment. The left hand, like, could be something that you could play on the guitar to taka, 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 and accompany somebody who's singing, right? So, as any accompaniment, the good rule of a good accompanist is what? Do not play louder than the person you accompany, right? So what we need to make sure, our left hand accompanies right hand properly, which means it is not too loud. At the moment, the ratio you're having is much more towards the left hand. So I hear, which is a little bit crooked, the opposite direction that we want. What you need to make sure, you need to have your left hand as light as you can, and to make your right hand shine. So try to withhold your left hand a little bit, and do not give it all the strength that you have throughout both hands. Okay, why did you rush on the chords? Why did you rush on the chords? You have a very good tempo. This is not the place to rush. When we end a big section of the piece, it's even better to take a little bit of time and separate these chords a little more, rather than try to finish them faster. You understand? Also, in that left hand, do you play at the end of every second measure? Did you change those notes? Because I couldn't hear very well from here. Right? No? If you have the score when you play here, the left hand is changing. So it's a little bit further down. Yeah, it's here. Yeah, make sure you don't miss that. It's very easy. It's very easy to overlook when you look on the page, because it looks so similar. And then in the chords afterwards, once you reach here, see you have sforzando on E. It's a bigger chord. And the other two are much lighter. And then bigger. Would you progress, please? Would you play the middle section?
Wait, the.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about, there is a very, very interesting thing that we have to understand. We have something called sforzando, right? Sforzando is an accent, that is a sudden accent that happens, right? But we understand the difference between sforzandos depending on when they are happening. Here, you are having a section that is supposed to be played soft. It's marked piano, right? And the gear. First of all, I mean, it seems like only the next to last sforzando on the page is Mozart's, and the other ones are added by editors, but we're not gonna discuss editions at the moment. It's too broad of a topic. Let's say we're doing all of these sforzandos and we are in the piano. So we cannot play our sforzandos with the force and with the volume that we would do, for example, one line above. So when we're playing in the soft section, we cannot go. It's too much, because it's as if you're in a normal conversation, suddenly screaming, right? When you imagine you are whispering something to somebody, I want to show you this thing, right? You would make an emphasis where your word would still stand out, but it would still within the volume of whispering. So this is exactly what is happening here. We need to make an emphasis, but a gentle one, not aggressive one. Okay? And when you get here, the next section is piano again, and you have to hold yourself so well. Before the piano comes in, because if you already starting playing kind of loud, once the accent of forte comes, it doesn't sound nearly as impressive as if you hold. Right? So understanding how the contrast works and really planning it is something that you have to think about. Now, let's think about the planning. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 measures of the same type of dynamic change we have. If we play that exactly the same, it will get boring about halfway. And it's inevitably going to be this way because it's going to be repetitive. Now, how can we make this more interesting without changing much? Because we don't have really a lot of things to change here. We have pianoforte, 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 pianoforte. What's going on? What's changing? The harmony is changing, right? So within the progression of notes that we have, I'm going to play the progression of notes that are just forte. Right? So if you think about that, the chords that are wider, they would get more volume just because they're wider. But if you also add a little bit of volume there, that would create a few separate waves within that passage. It would go. And then if we think that we are having imaginary little crescendo, and then kind of, and then, right? So there will be like a few separate waves that would provide a little more of the inner development in that passage that otherwise may sound boring because it's repetitive. So do not give your best forte on the first C minor chord. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you will still make the difference between forte and piano. Just your fortes would be for each chord a little bit different. Okay. And also, I noticed in the double third passages, 2, 3, 2, 3. Give those rests their full length. Do not cut them short. It's better in here, even to stretch them a little bit to make your listeners wait. Make them wait, especially since the harmony is changing. First one is major, and then you wait, and then it's minor. And then it's more full, but again, not too aggressive. Again, wait. And after that one, you should probably wait the most. Do not jump back in. 2, 3. Okay. And it's a good thing that Mozart is wonderfully writing his sonatas, and that so many things are in the repeat, in the recapitulation are the same, just in the different key. So everything that we worked on in the development and in the exposition basically applies to the repeat as well. So I'm sure you will be able to work on the same things in the recapitulation. Okay. Nice job, and thank you. It was a pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. That was wonderful. Wonderful performance and even more wonderful lesson from Asiya. If our audience and Sophia, if you miss anything, it's always going to be on replay on YouTube, so you can check it out and review some of the things that Asiya said. She gave us a lot of information. All right, so with that, I will remove Sophia from the room, and it's just us. Well, wow. And thank you so much again for really giving your time. We went 15 minutes over. And thank you so much for being so dedicated and so just really, really serious about giving the information and really making sure that the students get it and our audience get it. So really appreciate all your insights.
If you're doing something, you have to do that seriously. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. So with that, I think we come to an end of today's episode. If our audience want to check out Asiya's future concert schedule, her recordings, everything, it's on her website on asiyakorepanova.com. She also has a wonderful Facebook page, lots of followers, lots of fans. You can follow her there as well. For our masterclass, if you want to be a performing student, for the future masterclasses, go to our website at thepianoleague.com/pianostar or /masterclass. Remember, the classes in May will stop being free. So this is your last chance to sign up for the remaining April classes that are free. So make sure that you check that out. And be sure to check out our showcase as well, a wonderful opportunity for kids aged 7 to 12 to perform, and there are little competition elements as well. Deadline is in a week. You only have to play one piece. So apply. And last but not least, subscribe to our YouTube channel for more piano education and fun content. All right. So with that, we finish today's episode. Piano Leaguers, happy practicing, everyone. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.